Good morning, students. Okay, so I hope that all of you have given the attendance. So apart from service-oriented architecture framework, is there any other doubts from your side? Before that, tell me, have you gone through the lecture notes in the website? If you have gone through that, please write one. If you have not gone through, please write two. So you have gone through the lecture notes, right? Okay, very good. So Moa has not gone through. Why? Moa, what is the problem? दरवाजा लगा दीजिए. Moa,
Yes, sir.
why you have not gone through the lecture notes?
Sir, I had some work to do, and moreover, I joined yesterday only, sir.
So please, whenever I give some task, try to do it in time. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. So again, I am discussing the service-oriented architecture. So what is service-oriented architecture? It's basically a small service which has been created by a third party, and will give. It's a common service which can be taken by any applications. So they can take the third-party services with a minimum cost and connect with other third party. And there are several features are there regarding the service oriented architecture. So first thing is that these are the common services, so we don't have to create that services again and again. Like for the e-commerce site, for the payment gateway, for the different bank, we don't have to create the API, because as it's a common services, so we can take the help of the payment gateway API of the other third-party services like BillDesk or Paytm or Google Pay, like this. So they are providing the services with a very minimum cost, and it's a win-win situation for everybody. For the e-commerce side, they don't have to create and maintain separate payment gateway. At the same time, the Google Pay, Paytm. So these third-party companies are also giving these services to multiple numbers of, yeah, they're acting as a bridge with the bank as well as the e-commerce side, and they're taking a percent of commission from both of them. So it's a win-win situation for both of them. But in that case, several security issues are coming. So that is why I am going to discuss the service-oriented architecture framework, so that everybody have a very everybody's business proposition as well as the business commitment, and as well as the business concern and the security concern, everything can be preserved. Like this is the client. So this application is provided by the client. Client is providing what type of applications? That they are requesting for the applications of deducting their money through the payment gateway, or some other applications, like they want to know the bank details like this. Okay, or they want to go for some EMI application. So when they provide the applications, and here the service oriented architecture framework starts. So this is your SOA API. API, what is the full form of API? Application Program Interface. So here my SOA API is there. So when the application comes to the SOA API service layer, they first check through the security. Means that whatever data has come to me at whatever format, like already I discussed that one e-commerce site may send their data in the HTTP format. Another e-commerce site may send the data in PHP format. Another e-commerce site may send the data in ASP.NET format or Java or JSS format. So whatever format we are sending, they will create the entire format to a common format. What is that common format? That common format is called either XML format or JSON format. So their security part is done. Now this format data, so whatever data they have created in JSON format, they will send it to their service layer because they want to know that what type of services you are asking for. Now if they find out that suppose this service is the bank money transaction service, cash transaction service. This service may be the password change password service. This service may be the balance inquiry service. They are not authenticated to provide you the service. What they will do that they will take the service in JSON format and they will send it to the banking side. So this is the banking side service. This side is the banking side service. So they are taking the service and they are forwarding it to the banking side. Now the banking side will check that what type of application module I have to follow. Suppose if it is a cash transaction service, that case I have to first go to the application database to check that the customer's authentication. If the customer's authentication is okay, that case they will check that whether the sufficient balance is there or not, and after that they will contact with the customer by sending an OTP message to authenticate it from the customer side, so that the customer cannot deny later on that they have not requested for that service. So if the OTP they get, that immediately they will approve or reject the transaction. Now when the CRM module is required, here you can find out the CRM module. CRM full form is Customer Relationship Management Module. So if we need to change the password, or if we need to change the address of the customer or phone number of the customer, so that time I will check the CRM module to find out what at the customer status. Now if I want to increase the limit of my credit card transaction, that case my CRM is required, because the CRM I need to check that whether the customer has paid its credit card bills regularly or not, whether he has any defaulter history or not, whether his CIBIL score is good or not. Do you know what is CIBIL score? CIBIL score means if you in some bank or in some other cases, if you are defaulter or if your check is being bounced, that case your government has maintained one score against you. Okay, so if you are defaulter or if your check gets bounced, then immediately your CIBIL score will decrease. Now, whenever you apply for some loan, you have to give your PAN number. Now, with your PAN number, they will check your CIBIL score. If they find out that your CIBIL score is not good, that means that you have a record of defaulter of pending, defaulter of paying your loan, or your check has sometimes bounced, so they are not going to give you loan. And all those details are maintained in the CRM also. So this is the basic framework of service-oriented architecture. Is it clear to you, my friend? All the customer related data under management is there. Like if you want to increase your credit card limit, that means your credit card limit is 80,000. Now you want to increase it to 1,50,000. So that is in under which parameter they will increase your credit card limit. Or if you want to apply for some loan, under which parameter they will check to give you the loan. So they will check your CIBIL score. I am writing. CIBIL score. You can check what is CIBIL score. So CIBIL score is maintained by ministry government. They means that they will connect all your bank account or transaction account with your PAN number. Now, if you were somewhere defaulter of paying the loan, or if your check is bounced, some cases, that case your CIBIL score will decrease. And if you pay the loan in time and you don't have any debit record or debt record, that case your CIBIL score will increase. Now, whenever you will apply for some loan or a credit card limit increase, they will first check your CRM and they will check your CIBIL score, and now they will take the decision whether your loan should be approved or rejected. So that is the main job of CRM. Now, Arpita, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any other question? Is there any other question from your side? Okay, Aben has raised his hand. Okay, Aben, please unmute yourself and ask me the question. Aben, please continue. Lotha, yes. Please continue. Service-oriented architecture. This is very important. So the first thing is that service loose coupling. Please write it down also. Next is service reusability. The service statelessness. Service discoverability. Now, sir, what do you mean by service loose coupling? Service loose coupling means that loose coupling service means, suppose within your service there are two modules are there, two program modules are there. This is one program module, and this is the user who is sending. This is the user who is sending the request. Now, whatever input you are getting from the user, now you are producing some output, and you are sending that output to the next. You are producing that output to the next module. So this is module 1, and this is module 2. Now, if such kind of states happens that the module 2, this is module 2. So module 2 will not work until and unless the module 1 gives me the output. So that is called statefulness. Means this is the tightly coupled architecture. This is called tightly coupled architecture. Means each module is dependent on the other. Tightly coupled architecture. Tightly coupled architecture. Means that some of the services are there which I cannot do with the help of the others. Like if I explain it in a simpler manner, suppose if you want to sit for the exam of cloud computing architecture and deployment model, that case you need the help of mine. Until and unless your teacher explain all the modules, if you attend all the classes, you will not understand the entire concept. So that is called tightly coupled architecture. Means based on my output you can perform or you can work. Now, please, if you refer to Facebook, going through Facebook, having your account in Facebook, or creating your account in Facebook or WhatsApp, Instagram, whatever you are doing, for that, do you need my help or do you need anybody's help? You can do it by yourself, right? So these two services are actually loosely coupled architecture. Now, service-oriented architecture also should be loosely coupled architecture because it does not need the help of anybody. Help of anybody means it does not need the input of anybody. Means that if, because I am getting this service as a temporary service, right? Because here already I have discussed that this one is my e-commerce site. This one is my e-commerce site. This one is my bank. Now there are several SOA modules are there. Is it like that I have to depend on a particular SOA module or Google Pay? So if Google Pay is not available tomorrow, that case I can take the service of anybody else. How it can be possible? It is possible only when these services are loosely coupled itself. They don't rely on the other services. Do you get my point? What do you mean by that service loose coupling? Or any doubt? So his definition will be service does not have any dependency which is obtained through loose coupling. Another is the service reusability. Service reusability means the same service can be reused multiple number of times. Like this Google Pay. Google Pay is a service which can be reused by everybody, right? I can reuse it even from the Flipkart itself. I can reuse it from the Amazon itself. Also, I can reuse the Google Pay. I can pay my money through Google Pay. From Snapdeal also, I can pay my money through Google Pay. If I want to, not only for the e-commerce site, if I want to pay my bill, or if I want to send a gift to my friend, if I want to send some money to my friend, that case also I can use Google Pay. So I can reuse the service again and again. So there is no problem in reusing that service. Next is the service statelessness. This one I have discussed yesterday. Can you tell me that what do you mean by service statelessness? Anybody? Can you tell me what do you mean by service statelessness? Yes. Service statelessness means it does not store any user data. Not only user data, Harshit. It is statelessness means that I will not store any not only user data, also the banking data. Means I am not going to store any data related to this service except the transaction ID. Because why the transaction ID is required? Sometimes I need to initiate the refund process, or sometimes if the transaction fails, that case I have to settle the dispute. So for that, I need the service statelessness. Next is the service discoverability. That is also very important thing. How do I know which services to use? Whether I should use Paytm or whether I should use Google Pay, or whether I should use Phone Pay. because it may happen that this may be fake and this is taking my user data, and after that they have deducted entire money and they disappear. So I cannot say anything because they don't have any physical existence anywhere except in the web, right? So whatever service you create, immediately you cannot declare yourself as a service SOA architecture. Means you cannot declare yourself as a third-party service provider. You have to first upload your service in the service registry. So there is a term called service registry. So if your registry, your upload in the service registry is complete, now you have to apply to IRDA, that is a government agency. They will check that whether you can be provided this kind of approval for this kind of services or not, and they will check your service registry and everything. If your service registry and IRDA approval you get, then immediately you can make yourself discoverable in the web. If you can make yourself discoverable in the web, in that case you can go for providing this service. So service discoverability is also required. It is not like that तुम कल ये सब सुन के अपना एक सर्विस ओरिएंटेड आर्किटेक्चर बना के सबका पैसा लेना शुरू किया. How people can rely on you? Even if a single person's money get deducted without their consent and some mysterious things happen, the entire trustworthiness on the service-oriented architecture module will disappear. Next onwards, nobody is going to pay money through Google Pay or Paytm. So इस तरह का काम भी हो रहा है ना? You can find out that there are so many fraudulent activities are going on. For that, the service-oriented architecture modules are not doing this one. These are done by some hackers, but they are using they are penetrating the security concern of the service-oriented architecture, and they are doing this. So, do you have any question? Have you put down the entire thing? Have you noted down the entire thing? Please respond. Is there any question? If there is any question, okay, fine. I am going to the next one. Now, for service-oriented architecture, we are using web services. Now, there are some protocols are also being used in the web services. The two most popular protocols in service-oriented architectures are, one is called SOAP, another is called REST. So SOAP full form is Simple Object Access Protocol. And REST is Representational State Transfer. Now, what is the basic difference between SOAP and REST? SOAP uses, already I told that whatever be the web format we send the data, it will be sent to the bank, or it will transfer the data in a universal file format, right? Can you tell me what are the universal file format they use? Can you tell me what are the universal file format they use? Yesterday I told. Mustaq, do you have any question? Please raise your, please unmute yourself. Oh yes, XML and JSON. Very good. Now, SOAP always use the XML file format, but REST use HTTP, sometimes XML, JSON, both. Now, another difference between SOAP and REST is that it requires high bandwidth. It requires low bandwidth. So most of the cases people uses SOAP, and in few cases they uses REST protocol also. Now how the SOAP basically works, they actually takes all the information from the customer as a message, and then they convert it to an XML format and then send back to the third party, that is the bank, and they get the message as an approval or reject and then send back to the user again. I am showing you the SOAP framework. Sorry, yes, SOAP framework. So I am the client or I am the user. I am sending several requests, and those requests will come as a message 1, message 2, like this. And this will go to the service-oriented architecture protocol. Now here, suppose Google Pay using SOAP, GPay is using SOAP protocol. Now Google Pay will be termed as an handler 1. So they are taking the client message. Now suppose there is another handler, means that phone pay. I am sending another request to phone pay also. But suppose forget about phone pay, the same handler is there. Oh, sorry. Now, whenever the handler 1 within Google Pay takes the message, they will convert it to a JSON message and send it to handler 2. And you convert it to message 3 or message 4. Now this is going on inside your service-oriented architecture of Google Pay. Now this will go to your SOAP protocol of Google Pay. Now shall I delete this one so that the next part is I have to draw the next part, or have you written this this part? This part you have drawn this one. Shall I delete and write the next part of the part of which is in the right hand side? Have you drawn this part? Or I can do another thing, that I am showing you the exact architecture instead of drawing this one. I am showing you the exact architecture so that you can relate yourself. Just a minute. Can you see my screen? Okay, here I am showing it to you. Now you can check that here my client is sending the message, that is my request message, and it is going to suppose Google Pay. So Google Pay has two handler. So first handler is sending your message, and then it is converting it to the XML format. And second to handler two, handler two is taking this message as a second format, and then it is sending it to the soap. Now soap is taking this one, and this binded message is sent to handler of your bank. Now bank is taking this message as in JSON format. They decrypted the message as a JSON format and send this to their service application module. Now in the service application module, there are separate small modules are there, like the CL module that you have seen, or the application database module. From that, they get the information and then approve or disapprove it and send back to through. So is basically it's a message bearer. So it is taking the message, it is forwarding the message again to the client side, and the client is taking this one and it gets the message in the form of a request or response. Okay, so this is the basic framework of SOAP. If you have any question regarding this, you can ask me.